She had been watching her sister fake being sick for 15 years to get all the family attention, then tried to steal their grandma's $2 million inheritance until she exposed her lies with video evidence right there at the will reading. But what happened in that room would destroy way more than just Maya's lies. It would tear apart everything their family thought they knew about the daughter they had been babying for over a decade. Emma had always known deep down in her gut that something was seriously wrong with the way her family treated her sister Maya's so-called chronic illness. And I mean seriously wrong, like the kind of wrong that makes your stomach twist when you think about it too hard. But she couldn't put her finger on exactly what it was that bothered her so much. While Maya spent her days lounging around the house claiming she could barely walk to the bathroom due to some mysterious autoimmune condition that seemed to change symptoms depending on what was convenient for her, at the time Emma was the one busting her ass, working double shifts at 2 different jobs just to help pay for her sister's endless parade of medical appointments, expensive treatments, and the kind of organic specialty foods that cost more per meal than most people spend on groceries in a week. You know those families where one kid can do no wrong and the other kid is basically invisible. Well, that was Emma's life story, except the twist was that the golden child was supposedly dying slowly and painfully, which made questioning anything about the situation seem like you were literally the worst person on earth for even thinking it. Emma had been 15 when this whole nightmare started, and Maya was 17, a perfectly healthy athletic teenager who could run a 6-minute mile and bench press more than most guys on the football team. When suddenly out of nowhere, she started complaining about joint pain and these mysterious symptoms that no doctor could ever definitively diagnose, no matter how many specialists their parents dragged her to see. But here's the thing that Emma didn't know at the time, and honestly probably couldn't have imagined even in her worst nightmares. Maya had discovered something that would completely change how their family functioned, and Emma's role in that family was about to become very, very different in ways that would steal 15 years of her life. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but when Emma looks back on it now, she can see how calculated and deliberate every single step was, and it makes her sick to think about how perfectly Maya played everyone. Maya went from being the athletic, outgoing daughter who was planning to get a soccer scholarship to college to being this fragile, vulnerable creature who needed constant care and attention and watching and protecting from anything that might make her condition worse. Their parents, Linda and Robert, immediately reorganized their entire lives around Maya's supposed needs, like she was made of glass that might shatter if someone spoke too loudly, or if the house got too cold, or if there was any kind of stress or conflict anywhere in the vicinity. Emma watched helplessly as her sister became the center of their universe, while she slowly faded into the background, like a piece of furniture that nobody really notices unless they need to move it out of the way. Every single family gathering began with these long, detailed updates about Maya's latest symptoms and test results and treatment adjustments that the doctors were trying. Every vacation had to be planned around Maya's energy levels, and all these supposed medical restrictions that seemed to change from day to day depending on where Maya wanted to go and what she felt like doing. Every celebration had to be kept quiet and low-key because they couldn't risk overstimulating Maya's sensitive nervous system that apparently couldn't handle normal levels of noise or excitement. Emma's own needs and dreams and accomplishments became completely secondary to maintaining this careful, controlled environment that Maya's health supposedly required, and the worst part was that Emma genuinely believed it was all real and necessary, so she felt guilty every time she felt resentful about the situation. But there were these little moments, these tiny inconsistencies that Emma noticed, but then immediately talked herself out of questioning, because questioning Maya's illness felt like questioning whether someone's cancer was real. You just don't do that. What Emma was seeing were tiny cracks in a performance that Maya had spent months perfecting, And these small inconsistencies were hiding a deception so elaborate and calculated that it would make professional con artists jealous of the level of planning and manipulation involved. She had been watching her sister fake being sick for 15 years to get all the family attention, then tried to steal their grandma's $2 million inheritance until she exposed her lies with video evidence right there at the will reading. But what happened in that room would destroy way more than just Maya's lies. It would tear apart everything their family thought they knew about the daughter they had been babying for over a decade. Emma had always known deep down in her gut that something was seriously wrong with the way her family treated her sister Maya's so-called chronic illness. And I mean seriously wrong, like the kind of wrong that makes your stomach twist when you think about it too hard, but she couldn't put her finger on exactly what it was that bothered her so much. While Maya spent her days lounging around the house claiming she could barely walk to the bathroom due to some mysterious autoimmune condition that seemed to change symptoms depending on what was convenient for her, at the time Emma was the one busting her ass, working double shifts at 2 different jobs just to help pay for her sister's endless parade of medical appointments, expensive treatments, and the kind of organic specialty foods that cost more per meal than most people spend on groceries in a week. You know those families where one kid can do no wrong and the other kid is basically invisible. Well, that was Emma's life story, except the twist was that the golden child was supposedly dying slowly and painfully, which made questioning anything about the situation seem like you were literally the worst person on earth for even thinking it. Emma had been 15 when this whole nightmare started, and Maya was 17, a perfectly healthy athletic teenager who could run a 6-minute mile and bench press more than most guys on the football team. When suddenly out of nowhere, she started complaining about joint pain and these mysterious symptoms that no doctor could ever definitively diagnose, no matter how many specialists their parents dragged her to see. But here's the thing that Emma didn't know at the time, and honestly probably couldn't have imagined even in her worst nightmares. Maya had discovered something that would completely change how their family functioned, and Emma's role in that family was about to become very, very different in ways that would steal 15 years of her life. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but when Emma looks back on it now, she can see how calculated and deliberate every single step was, and it makes her sick to think about how perfectly Maya played everyone. Maya went from being the athletic, outgoing daughter who was planning to get a soccer scholarship to college to being this fragile, vulnerable creature who needed constant care and attention and watching and protecting from anything that might make her condition worse. Their parents, Linda and Robert, immediately reorganized their entire lives around Maya's supposed needs, like she was made of glass that might shatter if someone spoke too loudly, or if the house got too cold, or if there was any kind of stress or conflict anywhere in the vicinity. Emma watched helplessly as her sister became the center of their universe, while she slowly faded into the background, like a piece of furniture that nobody really notices unless they need to move it out of the way. Every single family gathering began with these long, detailed updates about Maya's latest symptoms and test results and treatment adjustments that the doctors were trying. Every vacation had to be planned around Maya's energy levels, and all these supposed medical restrictions that seemed to change from day to day depending on where Maya wanted to go and what she felt like doing. Every celebration had to be kept quiet and low-key because they couldn't risk overstimulating Maya's sensitive nervous system that apparently couldn't handle normal levels of noise or excitement. Emma's own needs and dreams and accomplishments became completely secondary to maintaining this careful, controlled environment that Maya's health supposedly required, and the worst part was that Emma genuinely believed it was all real and necessary, so she felt guilty every time she felt resentful about the situation. But there were these little moments, these tiny inconsistencies that Emma noticed, but then immediately talked herself out of questioning, because questioning Maya's illness felt like questioning whether someone's cancer was real. You just don't do that. What Emma was seeing were tiny cracks in a performance that Maya had spent months perfecting, and these small inconsistencies were hiding a deception so elaborate and calculated that it would make professional con artists jealous of the level of planning and manipulation involved. Emma watched her sister get treated like she was made of precious glass, while her own needs were consistently dismissed as less important than maintaining Maya's delicate health requirements, and Emma started to notice that Maya's symptoms seemed to have very convenient timing. Maya would have these sudden severe flare-ups that required Emma's immediate attention and care whenever Emma tried to make plans with friends, or started dating someone, or basically anytime Emma seemed like she might be developing a life outside of taking care of Maya. Maya would experience these miraculous temporary improvements whenever there was something she really wanted to do, like attending a wedding or going shopping for clothes that might make her feel better about her situation. Maya's symptoms would mysteriously intensify whenever there was household work that needed to be done, or when Emma seemed to be getting too much attention from their parents for her own accomplishments at work. The pattern was so consistent that Emma started to wonder if she was going crazy for noticing it, but she couldn't shake the feeling that Maya's illness seemed to respond more to social situations than to any kind of medical treatment they'd tried. When Emma was 25, she had been working for 7 years to support Maya's medical expenses and sacrificing her own goals and relationships when something happened that made her start questioning everything she thought she knew about her sister's condition. What Emma discovered by complete accident would crack open the first hole in Maya's carefully constructed deception, and once Emma started pulling at that thread, the whole thing would unravel in ways that Maya never saw coming. Emma had borrowed Maya's laptop to check her email because her own computer had crashed, and she needed to respond to something work-related when she noticed that Maya had several browser tabs open to websites that made absolutely no sense for someone with a debilitating autoimmune condition. There were fitness websites with workout routines for building muscle and endurance nutrition plans for athletes who were trying to maximize their physical performance, and even some pages about competitive sports training that looked like Maya had been studying them pretty intensively. When Emma confronted Maya about the fitness research, Maya's reaction was immediate and smooth, like she'd been preparing for this exact question for months. Maya quickly explained that she'd been researching gentle exercises that might help with her condition because some of her doctors had suggested that very light movement could potentially be beneficial for managing her symptoms, and she was trying to find activities that wouldn't aggravate her autoimmune disorder or cause her joint pain to flare up worse than it already was. The explanation sounded perfectly reasonable and medical and responsible, exactly the kind of thing someone with a chronic illness would be researching to try to improve their quality of life. And Emma felt like a terrible sister for even questioning Maya's attempts to take control of her health situation. But even though Maya's explanation made sense logically, something about the whole interaction felt off to Emma, in a way she couldn't quite put her finger on, and that uncomfortable feeling planted a seed of doubt that Emma couldn't completely ignore, no matter how guilty it made her feel. Emma started paying closer attention to Maya's behaviors and activities, not because she wanted to catch her sister in a lie, but because she genuinely wanted to understand what was happening and maybe find ways to be more helpful and supportive. But the more Emma observed Maya when Maya didn't know she was being watched, the more inconsistencies she started noticing between what Maya claimed she could and couldn't do physically. What Emma witnessed next would prove that her growing suspicions weren't just paranoia, and that Maya's deception was way more elaborate than anyone in their family could have imagined. The breakthrough moment came when Emma was 28 and had been financially supporting Maya for 10 years when she came home early from work due to a power outage at the restaurant that had sent all the employees home for the day. Emma entered the house quietly through the back door because she didn't want to disturb Maya, who was supposedly having one of her worst flare-ups in months and had been confined to bed rest for the past 3 days, according to their mother's worried phone calls. Instead of finding Maya resting weakly in her bedroom like Emma expected, she heard sounds coming from the basement that made absolutely no sense for someone who was supposed to be too sick to get out of bed. Emma crept down the stairs as quietly as possible and discovered her sister in the basement, using their father's old weight equipment for what could only be described as an intense, serious workout routine that would have been challenging for a completely healthy athletic person, let alone someone supposedly suffering from a debilitating autoimmune condition. Maya was deadlifting weights that Emma didn't even know their father could lift back when he was in good shape, and she was moving with the kind of strength and coordination and endurance that contradicted absolutely everything she had been claiming about her physical limitations for the past decade. Emma stood there frozen in shock, watching her sister complete an entire workout routine that included not just weightlifting, but also cardio exercises and flexibility training that would have been completely impossible for someone with the condition Maya claimed to have. When Maya finished her workout and started wiping down the equipment, Emma quietly retreated back upstairs, her mind racing with the implications of what she had just witnessed, and trying to process the fact that everything she thought she knew about her sister's health was apparently a complete lie. About 20 minutes later, Maya came upstairs, looking slightly flushed from exercise, but immediately switching back into her usual demeanor of weakness and exhaustion, claiming she had been trying to nap but felt terrible and asking Emma to help her get some food because she was too tired to make anything for herself. That night, Emma couldn't sleep because her entire understanding of the past 10 years had just been completely shattered, and she was starting to realize that Maya's deception might be way more calculated and intentional than she ever could have imagined. Emma lay awake staring at the ceiling trying to make sense of what she'd witnessed, and suddenly all those little inconsistencies she'd noticed over the years started fitting together into a pattern that was way more disturbing than she'd ever suspected. Maya wasn't just occasionally exaggerating her symptoms or having good days and bad days like Emma had tried to convince herself. Maya was actively and deliberately faking her entire illness, and had been doing it for over a decade while their family sacrificed everything to support her supposed medical needs. The next morning, Emma started conducting her own investigation, but she had to be incredibly careful and secretive about it, because if Maya really was faking her illness, then Maya was also probably pretty good at covering her tracks and manipulating situations to her advantage. Emma began documenting Maya's real activities versus her claimed limitations, taking notes about the discrepancies between what Maya said she could and couldn't do physically, and looking for patterns in when Maya's symptoms seemed to appear and disappear. Emma installed a small hidden security camera in the basement disguised as part of the old electrical equipment so she could record Maya's secret workout sessions and have actual proof of what Maya was doing when she thought nobody was watching. Emma also started following Maya discreetly when Maya claimed to be going to medical appointments, discovering that many of these supposed doctor visits were actually trips to a fancy gym across town, or shopping excursions, or social activities with friends that Maya had been hiding from the family. But Emma's investigation revealed something even more shocking than just a fake illness, because Maya had been using her supposed condition as part of a much larger and more calculated plan that involved way more money than Emma had ever realized. As Emma dug deeper into Maya's deception, she discovered that the fake illness wasn't just about getting attention and avoiding responsibilities. Maya had been systematically positioning herself to inherit the majority of their grandmother's estate by presenting herself as the family member who would need the most financial support due to her ongoing medical expenses and inability to work. Their grandmother Helen was 87 years old and had been increasingly worried about Maya's condition over the years, frequently expressing her intention to leave a larger portion of her estate to Maya, because Maya would need ongoing financial support for her medical care long after Helen was gone. Emma realized that Maya stood to inherit approximately $2 million more than Emma due to Helen's belief in Maya's medical condition and her assumption that Maya would need that money to pay for treatments and care for the rest of her life. Maya had been carefully managing most of the communication between Helen and the family about Maya's supposed health updates, making sure that Helen heard regular reports about Maya's struggles and treatment needs, and ensuring that Helen's sympathy and financial concerns remained focused on Maya's supposed vulnerability. Emma started calculating the total financial impact of Maya's deception over the 15 years it had been going on, and the numbers were absolutely staggering in ways that made Emma feel sick to think about. Their parents had spent over $400,000 on Maya's fake medical treatments, medications, special diets, and alternative therapies, and this money had come from Emma's college fund, their parents' retirement savings, second mortgages on the family home, and Emma's own earnings from the multiple jobs she'd been working to support Maya's supposed medical crisis. Maya had also been collecting disability payments for the past 8 years, claiming she was unable to work due to her condition, and Emma discovered that Maya had been receiving about $1,800 per month in government benefits while secretly maintaining her physical fitness and conducting activities that would have been completely impossible for someone with her claimed limitations. Maya had been committing disability fraud to the tune of over $170,000, while Emma worked herself to exhaustion to help support the family finances. But the financial fraud was just the tip of the iceberg, because Emma was about to discover that Maya had been planning something that would make her deception permanent and unquestionable. Emma found evidence that Maya had been researching legal and financial strategies for maintaining her fake illness indefinitely, including consulting with lawyers about disability trusts and medical power of attorney arrangements that would give Maya control over her own medical decisions and financial support, even if family members started asking questions. Maya had been planning not just how to maintain her current deception, but how to make it legally bulletproof so that nobody could challenge her claims or cut off her financial support. Most disturbing of all, Emma discovered that Maya had been documenting Emma's activities and behaviors, apparently building a case to present Emma as unstable or unreliable if Emma ever started questioning Maya's illness or threatening to expose the truth. Maya had been keeping detailed records of Emma's work schedules, social activities, and even casual comments about feeling overwhelmed by Maya's care needs, preparing to discredit Emma if she ever became a threat to Maya's long-term plans. Emma also found search histories showing that Maya had been researching how to handle potential exposure of medical fraud, including legal defenses and strategies for claiming mental illness as a mitigating factor if she ever got caught. Maya had been planning not just how to maintain her deception, but how to protect herself legally and financially if the truth ever came out. With their grandmother's health declining rapidly, Emma knew that time was running out to expose Maya's deception before it permanently affected the inheritance and made Maya's lies legally unquestionable. Helen had been talking more frequently about finalizing her will and making sure that Maya would be financially secure after Helen's death, and Emma realized that if Maya succeeded in inheriting the additional $2 million based on her fake medical needs, the deception would become much harder to challenge legally, and Maya would have the financial resources to maintain her lies indefinitely. Emma made the difficult decision to gather irrefutable evidence and expose Maya to the family, regardless of the consequences, because she couldn't allow the deception to continue destroying their family and stealing money from people who genuinely needed help. Emma spent several weeks compiling all her evidence into a comprehensive presentation that would be impossible for Maya to deny or explain away. She had video footage of Maya's secret intense workout sessions, documentation of Maya's internet research into maintaining medical deception copies of Maya's fraudulent disability claims, evidence of Maya's manipulation of medical records and financial documentation, showing the complete scope of the fraud Maya had been committing against their family and government assistance programs. The opportunity to expose everything came when Helen called a family meeting to discuss her final will and estate planning because Helen had been feeling increasingly unwell and wanted to make sure all her affairs were properly arranged before her condition got worse. Helen specifically asked for Maya to be present at the meeting because she wanted to discuss the additional financial provisions she was planning to make for Maya's ongoing medical needs and ensure that Maya would be comfortable with the arrangements. The confrontation that was about to happen would take place in front of everyone who mattered most and would destroy 15 years of lies in the most dramatic and devastating way possible. Emma arrived at Helen's lawyer's office with her evidence carefully organized and ready to present, knowing that this was her only chance to expose Maya with maximum impact and in front of all the people who needed to understand the truth about what had been happening. Maya showed up to the meeting playing her role absolutely perfectly, appearing weak and fragile using a cane for support that Emma now knew she didn't need, and being accompanied by their mother Linda, who was carrying Maya's medications and a special cushion for her supposed joint pain. Helen began the meeting by expressing how much she loved both of her granddaughters and explaining her reasoning for the inheritance distribution she had planned, telling everyone that while she loved Emma and Maya equally, Maya's medical condition meant she would need additional financial support throughout her life to afford ongoing treatments and maintain any kind of reasonable quality of life. Helen had decided to leave Maya approximately $2 million more than Emma specifically to ensure Maya could handle her medical expenses and wouldn't have to worry about money while dealing with her health challenges. Emma waited patiently until Helen had finished explaining the inheritance distribution and the lawyer had begun reviewing the specific legal provisions of the will. Then Emma stood up and addressed the room with a calmness that surprised even her. "Before these inheritance decisions become final," Emma said, looking directly at Helen and their parents, "there's something everyone in this room needs to know about Maya's medical condition, and it's going to change everything about how we understand the past 15 years. Maya immediately looked panicked and tried to interrupt, claiming that the stress of the legal meeting was causing her symptoms to flare up and she needed to leave. But Emma continued speaking, maintaining eye contact with Helen as she explained that she had discovered extensive evidence proving that Maya's illness was completely fake and that Maya had been deliberately deceiving their entire family for 15 years. What happened next as Emma systematically destroyed Maya's lies with irrefutable evidence would shock everyone in that room and change their family forever. The room fell completely silent as Emma began methodically presenting her evidence, starting with the video footage of Maya deadlifting heavy weights in their basement while claiming to their parents that she was too weak to help with basic household chores. Emma showed the internet search histories, proving that Maya had been researching how to maintain a convincing fake illness deception, including studying medical terminology and even acting techniques for portraying chronic conditions. Emma presented comprehensive documentation of Maya's fraudulent disability claims, showing that Maya had been collecting government benefits for a condition she didn't have while secretly maintaining the kind of physical fitness that would be impossible for someone with her supposed autoimmune disorder. Emma had anticipated every possible defense Maya might try to offer, and had prepared evidence to counter each potential explanation before Maya could even think of them. When Maya tried to claim that the workout videos were old footage from before her condition got worse, Emma presented time-stamped evidence and medical records that proved the videos were recent and that Maya's supposed condition had been consistently reported as severe during the entire time period. When Maya tried to say she had been following doctors' orders to exercise for her health, Emma produced documentation showing that Maya's supposed medical team had specifically advised against the kind of intense physical activity Maya was secretly performing. Helen's reaction was immediate and devastating as she stared at Maya with a mixture of shock, heartbreak, and anger that Emma had never seen on her grandmother's face before. Helen asked Maya directly, looking her straight in the eyes, whether the evidence Emma was presenting was true, whether Maya had really been faking her illness for 15 years, and whether Maya had been manipulating Helen's estate planning and the entire family's life based on complete lies. Maya's response to being confronted with absolutely irrefutable evidence revealed the true calculating, manipulative nature of her deception and showed that even when caught red-handed, she was still trying to control and manipulate the situation to her advantage. Instead of showing any remorse or taking responsibility, Maya's reaction proved that her deception had been even more calculated and heartless than anyone could have imagined. Maya's first instinct wasn't to apologize or show guilt, but to immediately shift tactics and try to manipulate the situation by claiming that she had been forced to fake her illness because Emma had always been Helen's favorite grandchild and Maya had felt neglected and unloved by the family. When that manipulation attempt failed to generate the sympathy Maya was hoping for, she completely changed strategies and became aggressive and threatening, accusing Emma of being jealous and vindictive, and claiming that Emma had somehow fabricated all the evidence to steal Maya's inheritance money. Maya threatened to sue Emma for invasion of privacy and defamation, and claimed that Emma's accusations were causing her genuine medical distress that was making her real underlying health problems worse than they had ever been. Maya then tried to convince Helen and their parents that Emma had been planning this revelation for months as part of a calculated scheme to increase her own inheritance money, and Maya painted Emma as manipulative and untrustworthy, suggesting that none of Emma's evidence could be believed because Emma obviously had ulterior financial motives for destroying Maya's reputation and relationship with the family. But the evidence Emma had presented was too comprehensive and undeniable for any of Maya's desperate manipulation tactics to work, because the videos clearly showed Maya engaging in intense physical activities that would have been completely impossible for someone with her claimed condition, and the financial records proved beyond any doubt that Maya had been systematically defrauding government assistance programs while accepting money from family members under completely false pretenses. The consequences of Maya's exposed deception would be swift and severe, affecting not just the inheritance money, but every single relationship in their family and Maya's entire future. Helen's response to learning about Maya's 15-year deception was immediate and absolutely final, as she instructed her lawyer to completely revise her will that very day, removing all of the additional provisions she had made for Maya's supposed medical needs, and essentially disinheriting Maya from the extra money she had planned to leave for Maya's care. Instead of receiving $2 million more than Emma, Maya would now receive significantly less than Emma, with Helen deciding that Maya's deception and manipulation proved that she couldn't be trusted with any substantial amount of money. Helen also announced that she was seriously considering pursuing legal action against Maya for fraud, elder abuse, and emotional distress, explaining that Maya's deception had not only stolen money and attention from the family, but had also caused Helen years of unnecessary worry and sleepless nights about Maya's future well-being and financial security. Their parents, Linda and Robert, were completely devastated as they realized they had been systematically manipulated and lied to by their own daughter for 15 years, and that they had sacrificed Emma's education opportunities and financial security to support an elaborate fiction. The financial consequences for Maya were catastrophic because she would need to immediately repay all the fraudulent disability benefits she had collected over 8 years, potentially face serious criminal charges for disability fraud, and return money she had fraudulently collected from family members, friends, and strangers who had donated to help with her fake medical expenses. The total amount Maya owed could easily exceed $300,000, and she had absolutely no legitimate income savings or assets to cover these massive debts. Emma's position in the family was completely transformed overnight as she went from being treated as the less important daughter to being recognized as the victim of Maya's manipulation and the family member who had made genuine heartbreaking sacrifices to support what she believed were her sister's medical needs. Emma's honesty and courage in exposing the truth, despite the enormous personal and emotional cost, earned her the respect and appreciation from her family that had been denied to her for 15 years. But the complete destruction of Maya's deception created new challenges and emotional trauma for Emma and their entire family that would take years to heal, and some relationships that might never be repaired. The aftermath of exposing Maya's deception was emotionally devastating for everyone involved in ways that went far beyond just money and inheritance issues, because 15 years of family relationships had been built on a foundation of lies that now lay in ruins around them. Emma felt vindicated that her growing suspicions over the years had been proven absolutely correct, but she also struggled with intense guilt, grief, and anger about the destruction of family relationships and the realization that 15 years of her life had been shaped and constrained by her sister's elaborate deception. Their parents, Linda and Robert, immediately entered intensive family therapy to deal with the trauma of discovering they had been systematically deceived, manipulated, and emotionally abused by their own daughter for over a decade, and they struggled with overwhelming guilt about the way they had treated Emma and fury about Maya's manipulation of their emotions, love, and financial resources. The trust that had been broken between Maya and the rest of the family seemed completely irreparable, because how do you ever believe someone again after they lie to you about something so fundamental for so many years? Maya initially refused to acknowledge the full extent and seriousness of her deception and continued trying to manipulate and control the situation even after being exposed with irrefutable evidence, claiming that some of her symptoms had been real and that the family was overreacting to what she tried to characterize as occasional minor exaggerations of her condition rather than a systematic decade-long fraud scheme. Legal consequences for Maya were still being determined, but the disability fraud alone could result in serious federal criminal charges and financial penalties that could destroy her future, and several family members were actively considering civil lawsuits to recover money they had given to Maya under false pretenses over the years. Emma faced the overwhelming challenge of rebuilding her entire life at 30 years old. After 15 years of having her goals, dreams, and opportunities constrained by the obligation to financially and emotionally support Maya's fake medical crisis, and Emma had to figure out what she actually wanted to do with her life now that she was finally free from that burden. The story of Maya's deception and Emma's courage to expose it became a powerful reminder that sometimes the people closest to us are capable of the most elaborate and heartless manipulation, but that truth and justice are always worth fighting for, no matter how difficult or painful the process might be. In the months following the revelation, Emma began taking concrete steps to reclaim her life and pursue the goals and dreams she had been forced to abandon 15 years earlier when her family's crisis began. Emma enrolled in college to complete the engineering degree she had always wanted, using the inheritance money she was now receiving from Helen and the savings she had accumulated over years of working multiple jobs. Emma started dating and developing meaningful relationships for the first time in years without the constant interruption and drama of Maya's manufactured medical emergencies and family crises. Emma also began working with a therapist to process the complex emotions surrounding her discovery of Maya's deception and the years of manipulation, sacrifice, and emotional abuse she had endured while believing she was helping her sick sister. Maya's attempts to maintain contact with family members were largely unsuccessful because she continued claiming that her deception had been motivated by legitimate emotional needs and that everyone's reaction was disproportionate to her actions. And Maya seemed genuinely unable to understand or acknowledge the magnitude of harm she had caused through 15 years of systematic lying and manipulation. Helen decided not to pursue criminal charges against Maya, but she did restructure her entire will to ensure that Maya's inheritance would be held in a restricted trust with professional oversight to prevent Maya from using any family money for further deception, manipulation, or fraud. Helen also established a much larger inheritance for Emma as acknowledgement of the sacrifices Emma had made and the manipulation and abuse she had endured while supporting what she believed was her sister's genuine medical crisis. The extended family and community were shocked and outraged when they learned about the scope of Maya's deception, and many people who had donated money, provided emotional support, or made sacrifices to help Maya felt betrayed, angry and hurt that their generosity and compassion had been exploited so callously for so many years. Emma discovered that exposing Maya's deception, despite the enormous personal and emotional cost, had given her a sense of personal empowerment, courage, and clarity about her own life that she had never experienced before, and for the first time in 15 years, Emma was able to make decisions based entirely on her own needs, dreams, and goals, rather than the constant demands and emergencies related to Maya's fake illness and manipulative behavior. If you enjoyed this story of long-term family deception and one person's courage to expose the truth despite enormous personal cost, please give this video a like and subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss any of our daily uploads, because we share a new inspiring, shocking, or motivating story every single day that will remind you that sometimes the most important thing you can do is trust your own instincts and fight for the truth, no matter how difficult or painful that fight might be.